Hello, ladies. Welcome to Sunflower Spa Chat. We're going to eventually need to name it or something, but just like Tuesday, I like to sometimes bring in amazing women to talk to us about their lives, about their purpose, about how they find their power, and about how they make sure they have pleasure in their lives. And Joia has been a friend of mine for decades. We won't get into how long. We worked together back in DC, and she has been a wonderful sister to me in helping me navigate my life. I help her navigate hers. We're going to talk a little bit about that as we get into things. But Joia is also a coach, a speaking coach. She's a PR. I mean, she does a lot. She's a comms maven. She does all that stuff. But right now she's doing coaching. So definitely check her stuff out on LinkedIn and on her website. And we'll have all of that in the link tree. But Joia, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I am honored. I am honored. Always honored to sit and talk with you.
I mean, it's so great. It's so great whenever we have time together. And when I was first thinking about Sunflower and creating this space, right, that would allow women to sort of take off the armor of like who we're supposed to be in the world and what we call, patriarchy. You were one of the first people I called because for me, you embody this woman's journey in so many ways. And it also feels very familiar to mine. You know, you know, you're you were married, not that I was married, but you're a single woman as long as I've known you. Yet you have a wonderful young woman who you've raised to you're now a grandmother to her wonderful grandson, or to her son, you're the grandmother too. And it's like, right, we get to be all these things, so it's a pleasure to be talking to you about this. And as we were talking to women all, like all around, and we did our better sex survey and all that stuff, these three words sort of started coming up, outside of healing, which was definitely another one. But so how do we heal? Right. And the three words that kept on coming up was pleasure, power, and purpose.
Mhm.
Right. And I think they go in different orders depending on the
Yeah.
day, right?
Mhm.
But you need to have these three things. And so, I want to talk about how do you put on these three things, right? How do you know you have them in you, around you? And let's start with power, because I feel like power allows you to choose you, right? Power allows you to have agency. But how did you find your power, and what does that even mean to you? We're told find your power, find your power. What does that actually mean to you, and how did you do it?
Well, I hate to disagree that power it could ever be first. I hate to disagree. Power is never first, and you never find yourself in that power. That's not where you find yourself. You find yourself in your purpose. And you
We're
find
gonna
your
get to
purpose.
purpose. Can
Okay,
we?
we can
We're
do it
gonna.
in power. All right, I got you. I got you. Okay,
If
power. So then
I'm
I'm
gonna
going to
let
give
you
the
drive
same
yours. If you
answer.
can just let me drive
Okay, I'll
mine.
let you. I'll let you.
Thank you, Joya.
I'll take off my coaching hat and stay with
Thank you.
you.
I have my coaching hat
Power.
on now.
My power comes from bravery. My power comes from my grandmother, my mother, my Aunt Hetty, my Aunt Viola, you know, Aunt Bertie. Okay, my power comes from women and men who told me that I had the privilege of a civil rights movement and nothing should stop me. In every way possible, they would tell me this. They would tell it to me directly, they would tell it to me indirectly, they would demonstrate it. Okay. I came from a family of the most elegant women who had the finest china and crystal you would ever think. Now, were they stealing it from the white people they work for? I don't know. I actually hope so. But that's just me. But it was the
But that's
beauty
a form of power, isn't it? Being like, I'm
in the
going to
power.
take these
I'm gonna,
glasses.
like, that's right. I'm gonna take this whole set. Okay. And all this linen, and it also could have been gifts because they worked for the same people for a long time. And they also worked at hotels, fine hotels. So, because I'm looking back at the finances of my family, like, how did you buy this Waterford? Okay. And so power to the sisters who would do that. And I got my power from seeing how other people wielded power. I would love to watch television and movies, not necessarily for the stories, but to see how they live. And so I just decided to incorporate that into how I live. And so when you walk around with that kind of source, for you not to use your power is squandering a gift.
And when you think about your aunties, right? These your mom, just the women you named that were in your life, was part of their power. I mean, you talked about their work, right? Was part of seeing that power the day to day, like literally part of their power was getting up
Yes.
and going to work every day
Absolutely.
and church on Sundays and
Right.
having the Waterford after church, right, for
Right.
Sunday dinner.
Exactly.
And
Exactly. Exactly. That was part of watching the work ethic, them getting up. My grandmother was one of the first Black women in her community to own a house and owned one of the biggest houses in the community, which became a problem for a bunch of white people who came and told her no bank would give you the loan for this property. And what she did was, and I was behind a chair, I was small, I was like under 10. And I was behind the chair watching these men step in the door uninvited. And my father and aunt tried to get the men out the door, and my grandmother shooed them away. But as they're coming at her, she never moved. She never moved a muscle. She's
mm,
Her hands were folding it in front of her like this, and she never moved a muscle. And they were said they had papers that proved that she was not supposed to be in this house because we had a yard big enough to grow enough food to feed us, and an apple tree and a swing and 5 garages. And in the city of Cleveland. And my grandmother never moved. Eventually, she reached up at the door and closed it to a force, gentle force, that she closed them out and locked the door and walked out of the living room and walked away.
now
So
that's power.
I got up and I went to see where she went, and she was in her room on her knees praying, quietly praying. And I knelt next to her. And it's from her I got a foundation with God. Everything with
Mm.
her was be still and know that I am God. Everything is in divine right order, is what she taught me over and over and over again, to the point where I share it with clients. So I watched that power in all of these women. My mother had polio, but I don't have that as a memory of her.
I was
People,
going to say, I don't think I knew
I've
that.
known you 25 years and nobody, yeah, because it's not my memory of my mother. It's not the overwhelming thing. It
Right.
wasn't the thing that
Sort
defined
of
her.
how Michelle talks about her father and his disability, right? I think she said something about that, like it was something he had, but he went
Yeah.
to work every day, right? Like his
And
life
he
was
held it
what
up,
he gave
held
her,
it up.
right?
It wasn't her identity either.
That's right.
So, you know, when I talk about her, I talk about her strength. I talk about our funny jokes. I talk about our rum and cokes late at night once I was an adult, you know, but never the polio.
Right. So you had examples of power.
Yeah.
Does that mean you always had it? You always had agency? Or do you think you had to, see how, like you saw how it looked on your mother, on your grandmother, on your aunts?
Oh
But
no,
did you have to find how to put it on for you and
I did.
and say joy is worthy?
Oh yeah. I have a brutal inner critic. That voice that tells you what you're not. She's brutal. I mean, she always hates my hair. And that comes from an aunt, my mother's sister, who told me I had ugly hair. It was kinky and nappy and tight, and I'm tall. I'm extremely tall now. I was extremely tall at 5 or 6 years old, and I was not perfect enough for her. She took it out on me. I mean, to a point where I think my father, I knew at least 3 times my father was going to punch her in her face, but she just wouldn't let up. And it was on me. But then my other cousins told me as adult, she did it to them too, but I can't notice
But
what
you
she's.
didn't know that, right?
So
She
I
didn't
have,
line you all up and do it all at the same time.
which would have galvanized us even more.
Right.
Okay.
Good lesson
Right.
in power.
That's right. That's right. Good lesson in power. Divide and conquer. Right. So her voice, other kids calling me olive oil because I'm tall and really skinny, but my parents telling me I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. My
Right.
parents allowing me to decorate the Christmas tree, and I saw a picture of it years later, and it was a god-awful mess. But my parents kept telling me how beautiful it was. The neighbors would tell me how beautiful it was. My parents were always the wind beneath my wings, uh,
Hmm.
till their deaths. And I had to find me past the inner critic. I had to find me. And it's so interesting because I'm writing a memoir now. It's so about my journey with my inner critic. And it's so interesting because I had this brutal inner critic, but I would always jump out there to be the first. I would always jump out there. I was one of the first women hired by NBC News as a technician. I was the first Black woman to be the technical director of the CBS Evening News and Face the Nation. I was one of the first senior producers at C-SPAN. I was the first anchor of BET News. All the while, shaking in my shoes,
Mm.
second guessing myself. I would have a major victory, and all I could see was there was a run in my stockings. And so that's all I would go bed like, did anybody see the run in my stockings? And it wasn't
Mm.
until the 90s and somebody introduced me to the term inner critic, my wounded child. And I started working with that person. And he coached me he's still my coach. We've been together 35 years. And he introduced this to me, this unworthiness this worthiness we think we have to earn. And he taught me that you're worthy at conception.
Mm.
You are worthy at conception. Mankind tells you that you have to earn the grades. You have to go to the right school. You got to drive the car. You got to hang out with them. That's man being separate from God because you were worthy when you were granted the ability to be a human being. The rest of it is just icing on the cake. And when
Mm.
you can grasp life from that, that's when you get it. There's a line in Taoism. I think it's somewhere, there's 83 verses in Tao. And I think it's somewhere in the early 30s, 30, 31, 32 verse, where verses have been leading you up to understanding who you are. And so when someone asks you, who are you? So who are you? What would you say you are? We tend to list our job, our school, our neighborhood, or whatever,
Our last name in church.
our last name in church. Okay. Our last name in church and the legacy that goes with that in church. Okay. Okay. Or the awards you've won, or I am a yoga teacher, or I am a meditation artist. You start to list all of the things that are the accoutrement coming from being a human. That's who you are. But Tao says the answer is I am who I was before I was.
Mm.
I
I
am
love that.
who I was before I was. I'm that exact same whatever.
I
And,
love that.
and if you operate in the world with that mantra, I am who I am before I was. So it took me to nearly 55 years old to have this click in.
And that's when you found that inner
That's
power.
when
That's when you
that's
could
when I
fight
take no
the inner critic.
SHIT. Right.
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 Oh,
That's when it's like, oh boy. And
and
the
I
difference
want to
is
throw
like
out
you're
that
fully
number.
grown.
I was
Huh?
just going to say, Joya, I want to throw out that number, because 55, like to those of us who aren't there yet, right? Like, and I'm 47, going to be 48 this year, getting closer. I'm like, wait, when does this click? Right? Like, and we all thought we would have it together at 25, and we all did in a way, which is why we're still standing here.
Yeah.
Thank goodness and blessings to that. But yes, so thank you so much for that story. I think it's so important for on so many levels, right? The aspects of the people, whether it's your parents or the different people who love you, right? The people who give you the contrast, like your aunt, and then this journey of taking it off, putting it on, and then realizing, basta, I'm done.
I'm pasta. I'm cake. I have all the
I'm
ingredients.
done.
Cake.
I'm done,
I'm
right?
done.
Like
I've
now
baked
let me
up a
move
four
forward.
layer cake. I got all the frosting I need.
Mhm.
I'm
And
cake.
I'm that. I'm cake, I'm
I,
frosting,
I'm all that.
I'm
I'm all
strawberries,
that.
whatever I
Right,
want.
right, right.
Right, right.
But more importantly, I am who I was before I was.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. So, the reason why we start with power, and I'm going to now give a lot of love to purpose, is because without it, you stay in bed. And many people do stay in bed, right? And many people choose to maybe wake up and go to work every day, but they're still kind of in bed, right? Like, and choosing you is a shift. But the only way that power ends up with these smiles that you have, right? With the life that you have, with the journey that you have, is because you are driven by purpose.
Exactly.
And power may have gotten you in the car, right? Got your lipstick on so that you could go get that job at NBC,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
But purpose is what got you that career, right? Purpose is how we met at the
Yeah,
Institute for
yeah.
Policy Studies. Purpose is the
Because we have the
gas.
same purpose.
We, and in many ways still do. I
It's
think
in
whenever
many
we check
ways,
in, we
in every
seem,
way.
I was going to say, we seem to still be, people talked about how they're losing friends and stuff. And I mean, I have a couple of cousins, right? That are MAGA, but like, I didn't lose any friends, right? Like, if anything, me and my friends are figuring out how we work together
Many friends,
to
my
move
friends,
forward.
my friends
So,
feel like there was a death in the family in 2016, and
exactly. I'm
I'm
like,
the
I
one
didn't
who
lose no
died.
friends, right?
And
I knew who my family was, like,
right, right.
but anyway,
But you know
now
what? I'm going to
per
add to this. I do have a friend who's open to anybody, and she's white and she has MAGA friends, but she's not MAGA, but she's totally non-political if it's possible, but she is. But I have made a rule. I cannot come to her house, any parties, nothing when those people are there.
that's it.
That's
No, I
it.
mean, she
And so
can't
I don't
trigger
listen to
you.
right, right. So she don't, and you know why
Mm.
she does it? Because she's afraid I'll hit somebody. And so,
Well, and that was,
and
as a
I'm a
quick
peacemaker.
aside, I do want to jump to purpose, but as a quick aside, when you were talking about your grandma praying, I
Yeah.
was thinking, I hope she was praying like, God, please stop me from getting my shotgun and walking
Yeah,
back
shoot
out
them
there
in the head.
and
Yeah, I don't know
before
what.
they get off
You
my
know,
property while
right,
I still have a right.
right. And the
Lord,
gun is
I'm
under the bed, so I might just pull
exactly,
it out
please,
front.
the hands of Jesus keep me in this room.
But you know what? My grandmother was knowing her, she was praying gratitude.
I'm sure she was,
She was just
and the
grateful.
gratitude for having the calm. But
Yeah, the
so
gratitude
you
comes, the
are,
purpose.
you, and to me, like, that's what you do. Like, if folks want to know what kind of coaching Joya does, she does coaching. Purpose is what Joya, to me, as our friends, and so I'm sure it's, evident in your coaching, living your purpose
Absolutely.
is
Absolutely.
Joya's jam. So
It is.
can you first, let's start with again, power, purpose, all these words. What the hell do they mean? What is purpose and how does it sit in me or any person?
Your purpose sits way behind the chatter of your inner critic and the culture you live in. It sits way behind that for white men, for white women, for Black people, for Asians, for whoever else, green people. It sits way behind your inner critic and what the culture tells you you should do. How many centuries that Black people who wanted to get an education, well, maybe not centuries, 150 years, were told they want to get an education, like, you can only be a school teacher. You can't be a doctor or a lawyer. You'll never be a doctor or a lawyer. Or women, you'll never be a doctor or a lawyer. An astronaut? Oh, never. Women don't do that. Corporate heads, heads of banks.
Could have been astronauts, Joya.
I know.
Both Joya and I wanted to be astronauts. Go on,
Yes, and
please.
now I realize I actually wanted to be a neurosurgeon, but I could have done it. Had Grey's Anatomy been on TV when I was in high school? So, that's,
But that's real talk.
that is real talk. I never considered it as a possibility because I was told I was a woman, I was told I was Black, and I told myself I was too dumb.
Hmm.
So your purpose is way behind that. Is when you can get through the weeds and have somebody ask you the hard questions over and over again. So why don't you have that? What is it about you can't get that for? What are you afraid of? What is your 9-year-old person telling your 40-year-old butt? When you get there,
Hmm.
when you get there, you'll look around and realize you've been living your purpose the whole time. What are the things you're passionate about? What are the things that bring you joy? What are the things you really want to do, like be an astronaut? What are those things? When you can get through the weeds, you realize you more than likely been living your passion. Because if you wanted to be an astronaut, you're watching every NASA program that will come on TV and you're watching every launch. You know the names of all the people going up in space. You know their names, their numbers. You know everything about these people. You know everything about these people. I mean, Sally Ride was my jam.
Allison Onizuka, he was
Judith,
from Hawaii.
exactly, exactly, exactly.
We have
So,
an airport named after him.
very nice, very nice. And I can't recall the name of the first Black woman who went into space. Her first name was,
Right.
well, it'll come to us. The audience can look it up and you'll put it in the show notes.
Exactly.
You'll put it in the show notes. But you're living that purpose. I wanted to be a United States Senator and thought nobody would ever elect me to anything. And then I discovered the media, and it was much better to observe them.
Mae Jameson.
Part of the Mae Jameson. Thank you. Sorry, sister, for forgetting your name. But I honor you. But I found the media. And then eventually I found technician, but then I wasn't big enough to be the technical director. But then I became the technical director. But then I wasn't smart enough to be a producer. Not only did I become a producer, I became a writer, but I had to dig through the weeds. So we can get to our purpose when we stop the chatter from everybody. Your internal, Sally over there, Betty over there, my aunt. Okay, you stop the chatter. Okay, DEI is not dead until I am. Okay, because I'm going to demand it. I'm going to demand it. You could take it off the books. You could tell Associated Press not to mention it again, but it had nothing to do with my struggle because I got through the weeds. So you find your purpose and then you live it, not listening to the voices. How many people are told, you can never be, you shouldn't go and play sports because, that's only a 3-year thing and you could get hurt. And then what are you going to do?
Or
Something
you're never going
else.
to make it to pro. It's like, oh, so then I shouldn't just play in an adult league, like have some fun.
But no matter what, because the passion should be playing basketball.
That's it.
It shouldn't be the NBA.
That's it.
The NBA is an outgrowth of your passion. Okay, so if you don't play in the NBA, they They got basketball leagues all over the world who would take you, Mr. or Mrs. America. Passion should be playing basketball and quieting all the nerve and to be the best at it.
Right. And passion and purpose, it sounds like you're saying like they dance.
They
They're
dance.
not the same, but they're almost interconnected.
You know, a lot of people have passion, have purpose. I know I'm supposed to do this, but without the passion and the tenacity to get there, you're not going to do the hard work.
Mm,
You know, I mean, it could be my purpose to be a brain surgeon, but am I going to go to medical school?
right.
I have to have a passion to do that.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
And could it be, like when I think about my purpose, right? Like I think I was put on this earth to serve and to organize. Like that it's obvious.
yeah.
And then I get passionate
Yeah, I
about
can't imagine you doing anything else. It's like Malia now works at Walmart. It's like,
what?
all right, get the straight jacket, something.
Right. Listen, when I went to the bank, someone literally said, "Oh,
Nothing
I
wrong
thought
with
you
people who
meant
work at Walmart. I'm
no,
just saying,
no."
Malia.
But no,
God.
when I went to the bank, people were like, "Oh, I must be thinking about a different Malia." I was thinking about Malia Lazu because people were so shocked that I was at the bank that when they heard Malia went to the bank, they were like, "Oh,
Well,
I thought you
I
meant
clear
Malia
this up for the
Lazu."
audience. Malia, who has been railing against everything corporate, everything capitalism for her entire life, starts a company, and one of her first clients is a bank.
And then I become an EVP.
Yeah,
But
you're right. He became
again,
executive vice president.
this is my purpose, right?
Yeah,
My purpose is
right.
liberation. You
Mm-hmm.
kind of going to find yourself at real estate or banking. But my question to you is like, it can end up looking different, right? You living your purpose. Like, so maybe your purpose is to heal people.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you, it could have been brain surgery, but it's going to end up being, you become a yoga teacher, right?
It's still
And
brain surgery. It's still brain surgery because what I do is help people understand the demand their prefrontal lobe makes on them. It's the last part of the brain to develop. It is where all your comparisons happen. Oh, she's cuter than me. I was cuter yesterday. Okay, how come I didn't get that job? You didn't get that job because you're stupid. That happens here. And then when we can understand how to maneuver, build a toolkit for here. So I'm still doing brain surgery. I'm
I
rewiring the
love
brain.
that. That's right. You are
Yeah.
non-invasive,
Non-invasive brain surgery.
done at home.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Done at home.
Doesn't mess up your
No,
hairline, nothing.
you don't need an appointment. You know, there's no recovery time.
That's
Okay.
it. Well, maybe sometimes
Oh, no,
because
oh yeah, there is.
sometimes, right, sometimes you need to sit in the bed and just heal, just like hold yourself, right? Sometimes you need to
I I tell
reintegrate.
I tell my clients and anybody who will listen, the deal with your inner critic is they need to understand they're safe. You're not going to do something that will make them homeless or embarrass them. Okay.
That's
And you have
it.
to do that by talking, by journaling, doing whatever. Or get a small baseball bat and beat that bitch to death. Whatever, when she just won't go away, shut the up.
Just knock
I
her
got
out.
something to do today.
Exactly. Just knock her out. Give her some, you remember A-Team, some Mr. T milk. Just like so you non-violently put her out. She can wake up in her bed knowing she's safe.
And wake up in her bed, play with your toys. I had one client to calm her inner critic when she had to write reports. She brought a coloring book and crayons into her office and she set it on the side of the desk. And she told her inner critic, now you call her. And she did it. And sometimes she slide over there and color herself because she needed a little break. And then she slide back.
See?
That's how she managed it. Whatever tool you can come up with, don't be behind the voice of your inner critic.
Yeah. And I love that. And that's a great tool, right? What is your inner child, your inner critic, what does it need to be safe? I
What
think,
does
and
it need
and
to be safe?
it could be just recognition, coloring books, right?
Yes.
But purpose, what I'm hearing you say is there's also a courage in purpose.
Oh, absolutely. There's a courage in everything. There's a courage for me to sit here
Yes.
on this show and not have my aunt complain about my hair. It's a courage. It's a courage. I did a post on Fannie Lou Hamer. There was nothing about Fannie Lou Hamer that would say she would be that woman because her peers are home working for the white woman, cleaning up. But she marched out there with little or no education, but with a purpose. She wasn't going to live like this anymore. And nobody she knows is going to live like this anymore. And she's standing up at the Democratic convention saying her truth. She could have been killed, stomped. And she talks about, I could fall. I'm only going to fall 4 feet, 11 feet to the ground, but I'll be falling forward.
That's purpose.
That's
That's
purpose
purpose.
and that's
All
passion, but that's courage. My life
that's
here
right.
is doesn't matter if I'm not marching forward.
That's right.
Courage.
That's right. I love that. And it's almost like, like I was giving a talk the other day and I said that stepping out, you don't need to be courageous to step out. Stepping out makes you courageous,
That's right.
right? There's something in having that purpose where it's like, no,
Right.
no more.
No
And
more.
boom, all of a sudden, just like we learned in The Wizard of
Right, right,
Oz,
right, right. That's right.
you've
That's right.
been there
That's
the
right. You've been
whole time,
there. You've been there the whole
right?
time. You've had it the whole time. Scarecrow, Cowardly Lion, Tin Man, Dorothy. You had it the
Had it
whole
the whole
time. Well,
time.
that's what I was saying about finding your purpose. You're already living it. You just didn't know it because you keep listening to this chatter around you.
Mm,
Dorothy thought she was lost. She wasn't lost.
mm.
She was just on her yellow brick road.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. Oh, I love that. I
Yes.
love that. So power and purpose, two things that we know about that we do, right? We have
Yeah.
meditations and we have coachings and we have
Right.
so
Exactly.
much stuff,
Exactly.
right? To
Exactly.
give us that. And we can also talk about it. One of the things that I think, and I hope that they had more than I'm giving them credit for,
Mhm.
but that the women in the past haven't given themselves, even the ones who had power and purpose, like Fannie Lou Hamer, pleasure.
Um,
This idea of doing something to please you, right? Like now, this could be sexual. It could be a piece of candy. It could be 5 minutes. It could be a foot, so right, whatever, a book, a silent room. But pleasure, I feel like, is something we've been, that has been removed from our toolbox, right? It's almost seen as a luxury item, not a critical part. Why have power and purpose
if you
if
don't have
not to
pleasure.
have a pleasing life? You talk about the Waterford crystals,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You talk about the linens,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? We do this because we deserve a human right is pleasure.
Yeah. I
And
get you.
talk to me about your dance with pleasure, how you find those permissions.
I I want to address the women before us. The pleasure I'm going to say is my pleasure would be called hedonism to them. They were to just take a day to have yourself and tell your family to go somewhere else so you could sit in a hot tub all day. Okay. Or you go by yourself and let them cook their own dinner. They wouldn't have done that. And even my family with all of that crystal and linen and everything else, what they did was only pull it out on special occasions. Now you've been to my house. I drink orange juice out of my water.
I was gonna say I have my grandmother's china on my
I
table
use it on a daily
right now,
basis. I'm
set.
not
Yep.
because I had a friend, Barbara Winder, 1977, come to my house and spend the night and fix my breakfast on my fine china and linens and everything with orange juice in the crystals. Glass. I'm like, first of all, where'd you find that? She said, you got it tucked up here and over here in a box.
Right. You're like, right, because it's only for Jesus and Thanksgiving days.
And possibly Easter, you know. And by then, I wasn't practicing Christianity on that level. And so, like, why was I keeping it? Right? She said, you're gonna die and it's still gonna be in that box.
Mm.
Why is your company more important than you? Barbara Winder.
Barbara, thank you.
Barbara Winder. And Barbara Winder, I picked her up at the airport. She had on jeans and a fox coat, 1977. And she's got to be 5'11", and she had on heels. And, so, and
Barbara, thank you. We're gonna put you in our little sunflower, women to
yeah,
look at. That's
yes,
right,
yes,
Barbara.
Barbara Winder. Um, so I just started using my stuff. It's not special. I just
Or
started
it
using,
is, and you are too.
and I am too. I am too. So no, the women I know would not have taken that level of break. You know, they spent Mother's Day surrounded by the whole family, either at home or all the children and nieces and nephews and blah, blah, blah. When my daughter was born, my friend Evelyn came and got her every Mother's Day. She said, how are you going, especially Evelyn, how are you ever going to enjoy Mother's Day if you're surrounded with the kids? Don't you do that all day? And so she would come and get India, and I'd go to get a spa treatment. I mean, this went on for years, where every Mother's Day, because she didn't have any children, she would go spend the day with India. And it was a beautiful thing for Mother's Day. So my mother would never have done that because they thought Mother's Day had to do with you still home with all these crazy people, but they're cooking.
Right, but they're nice to you
How
today.
can I see you today? You don't have to do anything today, but you're still surrounded with all these crazy people making noise and fighting and kids and in a restaurant and 5 million people in the restaurant trying to accomplish the exact same thing. No, my mother wouldn't have done how I do it.
Right.
But how do I find
And
my
India is an amazing woman,
she
an
is
amazing mother. So see, she turned out
who
just fine.
absolutely knows where to go to leave her husband and that 4-year-old somewhere where she ain't. Okay.
Exactly right.
Where
And
she
I
ain't.
don't think they were happy. I mean, like, I look back at my grandmother, who, again, just based on the years, right? The
Yeah.
appropriate behavior was for her
Yeah.
to want to do all that.
Mhm.
And it wasn't, until I got a little older, but she didn't like it. Like, she would have rather gotten her girlfriends and gone to Atlantic City and pulled, the little lever and tried to win some money and go
Yeah,
see a
yeah,
show with
yeah.
Aunt Ronnie and Aunt Helen, right? Like,
Right, right,
she
right,
would have
right.
rather done that. You know, so I like they were choosing it, but do you think all of them, not, I mean, obviously never all of them, but do you think some of them would have chosen your route of having
Oh, I
a
think my aunt, who was so brutal to me, didn't want any of it.
that's why she was miserable. That's why
She
she
was
she
miserable.
saw your young, fresh face and she just felt her resentment.
But she also saw my mother in a happy marriage and a man who took care of her, and I was a product of that.
Oh,
My mother was happy. My mother had a man who took care of her. My mother didn't leave the house to work. Okay, my
mm,
mother would take in men's shirts and iron them, which today I can iron anything. Okay, I can iron like the dry cleaner irons. Okay,
right.
and I take it to the dry cleaner because I don't feel like it. Not that I can't do that. So she would take in shirts. I think, and my aunt, my grandmother and her sisters did go to Atlantic City. I have pictures of our trips to Atlantic City. Okay, and we lived in Cleveland, so you can imagine what that bus ride was like. So they did enjoy being single. Okay. They did enjoy being single. But I think so much of what they did was tied to income. My mother took in the shirts because there wasn't enough money. And there was always that pressure.
Right. So
You
maybe
know,
if they
my
had
grandmother
more.
had two jobs because of the money. Okay. And the opportunities were so limited. So I think they were stressed about being Black, about being poor, about maintaining the mortgage, about keeping up the yard. I think there was this treadmill that they
And
had to.
so, how do you get, because many women today, including you and I mean, we are blessed. I'm not saying, I'm not equating where we are to where, like, but it's not like I mean, we still have to work for a living,
Yeah,
right? Like,
absolutely. I don't
um,
have to. I just gotta live on the streets and have nothing to eat.
right. No, right.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. Exactly. You have long legs. You need at least extra leg room at the very least,
Yeah, right. There's a shelter
so these
and I
things
need a
cost.
long bit.
But I think so many people would be like, yeah, welcome to the party. Like, I'm on this treadmill that you're talking about, and therefore I cannot take time to give myself pleasure.
All right,
And
love that.
can you just address someone saying that to you, Joya? Like, I'm a mom, I have young kids, or even I'm not a mom, but I'm working. I work two jobs. Blah, 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 blah,
Yeah,
blah.
yeah, yeah,
I don't
yeah,
have
yeah.
time for a hot bath.
You know what? But I bet you that same woman got time to go get her hair done.
And that's pleasure, right? Make that
That's pleasure
ritual.
right there. You got time to get a manicure, somebody's massaging your hands. Now, if you're light and you have sisters, cousins, aunts, uncles, friends who could take the kids while you go do an hour and a half to get your nails done. Okay. Or you know the woman whose salon it is, and your kids can sit quietly over there on their reading if they don't have a phone or an iPad. You have to make it your priority.
Mhm.
And that could be you get up an hour before the kids get up and stand in the shower longer than you need to.
Right.
Okay. That
Small
could be
pleasures.
when you're watching Netflix, you leave them to watch Netflix and you go sit in the room by yourself. Okay. We have a certain level of stress. And that woman who's working two jobs and got three kids and no husband and no sisters or anything around her, okay, there are mommy and me groups, there are church groups, there are aftercare
That's
programs,
right.
there's something where you can find that you have to prioritize it because of this is why. When you're on that hamster wheel and your heart rate stays elevated and your blood pressure stays elevated and your stress levels and all that cortisol is running through your body, you are weakening your heart, your kidneys, your adrenal glands, and you end up the 55-year-old sick woman.
Mm,
It is not a choice because here's what happens. When your mind goes through a lot of stress, okay, it will signal the body we're stressed out. Your body doesn't know whether that's a saber-toothed tiger or your boss got on your nerves. So your body's going to respond to this high level of in that way because it's not going to say, "Oh, guys, don't worry about it, heart. You know, she's just mad at her boss." It's not like a bear
mm,
outside. Okay, we don't have to do fight and flight every flight or fight or flight every time she gets upset about something. Every time she's stressed out about a bill. Every time she didn't get those extra few hours. Every time her children get on her nerves. Your body keeps doing it. It's like the reason I don't chew gum because as that saliva goes down your throat, your entire digestive system goes to work. It's just like you have had a steak. So why would I do that for hours to make my digestive system keep
work when it doesn't need
work
to.
when it doesn't
Right.
need to do that so I can stay healthy? Why would I keep running that? And it's all sugar and it's going to plant itself in my molars. And so, even if it's non-sugar, you don't want those chemicals in your molars. All right. All the gum
Hmm.
chewers out there, I'm sorry. But you have to find the time. Now, for those of us who have reached a point in our career, you either are somebody in management in your company, you don't have to have two jobs. You can have one job, and that job can be the most complicated job on earth. You feel like you have 17 jobs because you got a project here, a project there. You have to look at your calendar and appoint time for your sacred rest. And that is sacred because it's not changed. Just like you're not going to change the board meeting, you're not going to change this.
Yes.
It's in the calendar and you work around it all week long. You know, I don't go to Sunday brunch with my friends. Sunday's my sacred rest day. So Sunday is the take care of me day. And sometimes that, like yesterday, all I did was watch American Experience all day long. Okay, getting the history of the 20th century, the last half of the 20th century, because that stuff interests me. Okay. I don't open my computer on Sundays. I don't respond to, I look and see what text it is to see if it's somebody's died. But other than that, they can hear from me on Monday morning. Okay. And so it's where I sleep for 3 hours in the afternoon so that I can get the energy, the rejuvenation. I still do my yoga class, which I do at home every day, but it's where I rejuvenate. It's where I tell my organs we're okay.
Yeah. I feel that because I feel like I've been just on this journey, giving myself more time to rest. And it's one of my hardest things to do. It's probably one of the things I feel the most guilty about, and hearing you say it, it's like, right. It's, if I need to put it down as work, I can think about it as work, right? Your sleep is, if you need to feel, as I do, I need to get through a checklist so I feel accomplished in my day,
That's
you
it.
know,
That's it. I was going to jump in and say this, Malia, the constant working, not taking off is because you're still seeking your worthiness.
that's right.
You're still saying, if I don't do this now, if I don't do it on this deadline, I'm not worthy.
That's right. Like going to Hawaii was such a fearful thing. And now I wouldn't have a winter without it.
Right, right. Exactly. But I could reach you in Hawaii. You actually have
Yep.
to tell me you're in Hawaii because you respond. You are old enough, mature enough, adult enough, and passionate enough, and committed to your purpose enough not to let things slip because you're, 9 hours away from Boston.
That's exactly right.
Today's
And I
technology
end my
will
day
allow
at
you
the
to be in
beach.
Fiji if you wanted to
Exactly.
do the time difference.
Exactly. Right. And I
One of
end
my
my day at
clients
the
is in India.
beach.
One of my clients is
Hmm.
in India. We just figure out the time difference. It's
That's
early
it.
morning for me, early evening for her.
That's it.
You
Or
know, so
like you going and working from Arizona, right? It's like
Arizona. I
that,
was
like,
there for 6.5 weeks. Nothing stopped.
nope.
I mean,
But
yeah, a
at
week and
night
a
you
half of
were
that was
cuddling with that
Christmas.
grandbaby, right? Like, I mean, right, you gave yourself so much more pleasure by just working from Arizona for 6 weeks.
Working from Arizona. Working from Arizona. I mean, I wrote proposals. I put together a master class. I did all of that from Arizona because you know what? They have a pool.
That's right. And these are these
Pool.
pleasures. And I
Yes.
love how you're differentiating it as too. Like, because there are times, I mean, when you first had India, no, you don't have time to just be lounging. Like you do have another person. You have job.
Oh no. Oh no, no. Oh no, no. My other person knew that at 8 o'clock, the house had to get quiet.
Right. But I'm just
And
saying for
sometimes it
some
was 6 o'clock, I would
people,
change the clock to 8 o'clock so I could be
right. But for some people, get it where you can, but
yeah.
get it. Like
Get it
if
where you
it's
can.
2 more minutes in your
Oh,
shower,
absolutely. You could
great.
not have a whole
But
day.
give yourself that
Right,
two
right.
minutes.
Exactly,
But
exactly.
when it can be more than just get it when you can, whack-a-mole pleasure,
Right. Take
schedule the
it.
pleasure.
Right,
Give yourself more
right.
pleasure than you think you
Exactly.
deserve.
Exactly. While you're waiting for something, don't do it on the phone. Don't scroll. Assess your body.
Right.
When the kids go to sleep and they're asleep, take 10 minutes before
That's
you
it. Masturbate.
masturbate. Masturbate. Okay? Do whatever it is that will give you pleasure in the 20 minutes you got. Okay? But take your 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Take your 20 minutes. And then as your children get older, why don't they wash their own clothes? Why don't they pick me?
Right. Right. You
Why do
right.
you why does super mother mean I have to burn out every cell I have to do it?
Right. Oh
You
my
know?
gosh. Okay. I know we're coming to time, but I just had another question that I have to ask now
Okay, okay.
because so many women think their purpose is motherhood. And so they burn themselves out the way I burnt myself out thinking my purpose was saving the world, right? But just with you saying that about, washing their kids' clothes or right, like doing these things, well, because this is my purpose. Can you help women maybe separate that? You know what I mean? How do women navigate not losing themselves? Like maybe your purpose isn't to be a mother, but you're still a great mother. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Can
no,
you
exactly
help
what you're
women
saying. You have,
navigate that a little
yeah,
bit?
yeah. It's misplaced worth.
Say
Your
more.
worth, and I'm going to stand by the word misplaced. You make your worth this external behavior, and then you set such a high bar for achieving the goal of worthiness. You have to have days where the kitchen is a damn mess. And you're no more worthy if you clean it if you didn't. You have days where you have to go to work, and unless every single day is tied to your income, and there are millions of women that way. If you miss a day of work, you don't get any money. But if it's not, if you got sick leave, if you got vacation days, and the kids are going to school, take the day. I'm only talking about maybe once a quarter. Okay, how sick are you? Okay. Or how much vacation? You get 2 weeks vacation? All right. Now you only got 9 days of vacation. Take the kids to school, go back home, take your bra off, and sit down. This whole day could be like I did yesterday, American Masters on PBS.
Right.
You got a whole day binge watching those things that you want to binge watch
Right.
on
Eat
TV.
chips,
And since you've
sit
already
and
told
watch and
work,
eat stuff you can't. Right.
right, and then drop the kids and then go past 7-Eleven and get everything you don't want to eat, and then go home. Hide the wrappers when the kids get home. And you've already told work you're sick. Take the day. Because guess what's going to happen to you, sister girl? When you die from this stress, everybody will move on.
And that's right. We got this one time right here, and if you have children in particular, like you don't want your daughter to take on those habits.
You
Show
don't.
your daughter how to love herself by
Self.
her seeing how to
Oh,
love
yes,
herself.
yes, yes. Demonstrate it.
That's it. So
Demonstrate
even
it.
if you have to feel like, well, I need to give all to my daughter, well, part of your all is showing her how to take time for the gym, how to take time to chant,
Sacred
how to
rest.
take time for sacred rest. That's
How to take time
exactly
to
right.
heal herself and to stay healthy. Okay.
And you can only do that through modeling behavior.
You were stuck in this cycle of patterns of 80-hour weeks. You have to work. You have to work. You have to work. And we're modeling this from a culture that never wanted us in the first place. And we're fighting ourselves to get into this thing where they don't want to do it anymore either. They don't want to do it.
Right.
COVID has convinced even the whitest of all white men, corporate America, that he doesn't want to spend 90 hours a week at work. He figured out, I got kids. And so he now wants to work from home.
That's right.
And he's now fighting not to go back to work because
That's
now we
right.
had a really fragile but work-life balance. And we're fighting to get into there. Like Martin Luther King said, we're integrating into a burning house. Why do we keep doing this? So
That's
sit
it.
down, get your rest, balance your life. If you have the ability, if you're not a migrant worker on a farm, Okay. You have the ability to maybe maneuver some stuff, and then you want to reach back and figure out how that migrant woman can get off of there and get out.
That's it.
Okay. You
That's
don't
it.
just fix yours. You look back and you see somebody working too hard in your neighborhood. Maybe that's the day you take her kids and
Oh,
take the sky
Joya,
zone. You don't even talk to them
Joya,
in the sky zone. They just run around.
this is this is such a wonderful way to end because I know I've taken so much of your time, and I'm also looking, and just so everyone knows, we're about to record Joya's podcast that I'm about to be on. So we'll also put the link there so you can check out her podcast
Our
because she
conversation
has
is
a
going to be
great one.
our conversation is going to be
But
the
yes,
state of Black women.
oh, so see, so join us there. But this idea of ending with women coming together to support one another. Let's make the time for ourselves. Let's
Mhm.
make the time for one another. And as we say at Sunflower Spa, please treat yourself the way you treat others. Your body and mind and soul are begging for that kind of good love. Joya, thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome, Malia, anytime.